I pulled into Pinewood Grove last March, my old pickup rattling over the familiar gravel, expecting nothing but the hum of my backyard creek and the creak of my porch swing after 6 months away in Georgia, helping my sister through a rough recovery from knee surgery. I was bone-tired, dreaming in my own bed, maybe a cold beer, but the second I stepped out, something felt way off. The neighborhood was quiet, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that feels like it's holding its breath like a dog waiting for a storm to hit. No kids were out tossing footballs, no sprinklers chugging away, no neighbors chatting over fences. The lawns looked like they'd been through a drought yellow, brittle, dying except mine, thanks to my buddy Nate who'd kept my sprinklers on timer. I walked inside, dropped my bag, and grabbed a glass of water from my kitchen tap, crisp cold, straight from the well my grandpa dug back in the 50s. That's when I saw it. A cheap plastic sign zip-tied to my fence, bold letters screaming, "All exterior water used must comply with HOA conservation rules. Noncompliance will result in fines." At the bottom, in Sharpie, a name, Linda Voss, HOA president. Linda. Oh, I knew Linda. She lived 3 houses down, always in those clicky heels, the kind of woman who'd glare at your mailbox if it wasn't the right shade of beige. I'd been gone 6 months, and somehow she clawed her way to the top of the Pinewood Grove HOA, turning our quiet little corner of the world into her personal fiefdom. Before I left, she was already nitpicking banning porch flags, outlawing kids' lemonade stands, even sending nasty grams about unapproved garden gnomes. Now, it seemed she'd gone full dictator, and the neighborhood was paying the price. I ran into Nate that evening by the mailboxes, his face drawn, like he'd aged a decade since I last saw him. "Man, thanks for keeping my yard alive," I said, trying to lighten the mood. He just shrugged, eyes darting like he was worried someone was listening. "Things are different now, Jake," he muttered. "Linda's got the whole place on lockdown. Apparently, she'd shut off the community water supply, claimed the main tank was compromised, and left everyone high and dry for nearly a week. People were hauling water jugs from the next town over. Kids couldn't shower. Gardens were toast. Meanwhile, Linda's lawn? Green as a golf course. Her fancy fountain bubbling like she was living in a resort. How's she pulling this off? I asked, my jaw tight. Nate leaned in, voice low. She's got her own little squad, now HOA enforcers with clipboards and badges, handing out fines like candy. Nobody's pushing back. They're too scared. He paused, glancing at my house. You might want to keep that well of yours quiet. If she finds out you've got your own water... He didn't finish the sentence, but I got the picture. My grandpa's well, tucked behind my shed, wasn't on any HOA map. It was older than the subdivision, older than Linda's reign of terror, and it was mine legally, indisputably mine. That night, I sat on my porch, staring at the dark windows up and down the street. Pinewood Grove used to be alive, block parties, kids on bikes, old folks swapping stories under the oaks. Now it felt like a ghost town, curled up under Linda's thumb. I wasn't having it. I'm a retired firefighter, 20 years in the service, seen my share of bullies who thought they could scare people into submission. Linda wasn't going to run my neighborhood or my water into the ground. Next morning, I was up before dawn, coffee in hand, the old habits of early shifts kicking in. I headed to the shed, flipped open the well's cover, and fired up the pump. It hummed to life, steady and strong, water flowing like it always had. Nate showed up at 8 sharp with a couple of empty jugs, his kid Mia trailing behind, looking like she hadn't slept. "Jake, you sure about this?" he asked, eyeing the hose. "Sure as hell," I said. "Bring your neighbors. Just keep it quiet." By noon, half a dozen folks had slipped through my gate, single moms, retirees, even a guy who'd never said 2 words to me before. They filled their buckets, their coolers, their kids' water bottles, whispering thanks like we were running an underground railroad. Of course, Linda caught wind. That afternoon, An email blasted out from the HOA. Subject line screaming emergency water briefing. It was all caps, full of nonsense about critical infrastructure and sacrifices for the greater good. Unauthorized water use meaning my well would be met with immediate citations. I forwarded it to my old buddy Carl, a city water inspector who owed me one from way back. His reply was quick. She's got no authority to shut down private wells. No permits, no legal standing. Keep records, Jake. This is going to get messy. That evening, the HOA clubhouse was packed, tension thick as fog. Linda stood at the front in a blazer that screamed, "I'm in charge," waving a remote at a grainy photo of a rusty pipe. "This," she said, voice sharp, "is why we had to suspend water. It's about safety, people." I couldn't help myself. I stood up. "That's funny, Linda," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Your fountain's still running. Care to explain that?" The room went dead quiet. Her smile twitched, but she recovered fast. "Mr. Carter, private wells are against HOA Code 4.2. I grinned. "Wrong." I checked. Code 4.2 bans new wells. Mine's 70 years old, predates your HOA by a lifetime, and the city says it's legal. You could feel the shift like a crack in ice. Neighbors started murmuring, asking questions. Linda tried to shut it down, but the spell was broken. Later that night, Nate sent me a photo of Linda's shiny SUV parked in her driveway, a hose hooked up to her faucet, her lawn glowing green. Hypocrite. I saved the photo, added it to my growing file. Notices, emails, timestamps. I wasn't just fighting for water. I was fighting for Pinewood Grove. Things escalated fast. Linda sent goon sorry HOA compliance officers to my place, clipboards and all, demanding I shut down the well. I pointed to the county permit nailed to my shed. "You want to touch this, you better bring a sheriff," I said. They backed off, but the notices kept coming, taped to my mailbox, stuffed under my door, each one bolder, threatening $300 fines, board reviews, even lawsuits. I bagged everyone, dated them, sent copies to Carl. Then I got a tip from Nate. Linda was diverting the community water to her own property, using an old maintenance line nobody knew about. I checked the county maps, and there was a pipeline running straight to her lot. She wasn't just controlling the water. She was stealing it. I called a meeting, not in the clubhouse, but on my front porch. No social media, no emails, just word of mouth. 15 people showed up, Nate. A single mom named Sarah, an old vet named Hank, even Mia with a notebook full of doodles. I rolled out the county map, pointed to Linda's pipeline. "This is what she's doing," I said. "She's not saving water. She's hoarding it." Sarah pulled out a stack of HOA fines for her kid's swing set, for her rose bushes, for a crack in her driveway. "She's punishing us," she said, voice shaking. That night, we weren't just neighbors. We were a rebellion. Linda didn't take it lying down. She sent more notices, then started creeping around at night, filming people's windows, leaving threats. Sarah caught her standing in her yard at midnight, just staring. Creepy as hell. I called Carl again. "She's unhinged," I said. He didn't miss a beat. "We're sending an inspector tomorrow. Keep your paperwork tight." The next day, a guy named Walt rolled up, clipboard in hand, badge gleaming. He tested my well, checked the permits, nodded. "Cleaner than the cities," he said. Then I showed him the pipeline map, the photos of Linda's fountain, the timestamps. His jaw tightened. "This ain't a shutdown," he said. "It's theft." The city called an emergency hearing a week later. I walked into City Hall with a binder thick as a phone book every notice, every photo, every neighbor story. Linda sat across the room, all prim in her white blazer, but her hands were shaking. The commissioner, a no-nonsense woman named Ellen, laid it out. Unauthorized utility tampering, harassment, endangering residents. Linda tried to spin it emergency measures, community vision, but when I showed the footage of her fountain gushing while our taps ran dry, the room went silent. I stood up, voice steady. "I'm just a guy who wanted his neighborhood back," I said. Linda turned our home into her kingdom. She used our water tow, control us. The gavel dropped. Linda was out, the HOA suspended, her fines nullified. Outside, neighbors hugged, some cried. Pinewood Grove was ours again. Linda sold her house a month later, moved to some gated community where she could be the one bossed around for a change. We elected a new president, a teacher named Marla, who actually listened. We rebuilt open meetings, no more secret citations, a fund to help folks fix their yards. Kids rode bikes again. Gardens bloomed. Sarah's roses came back brighter than ever. One morning, I found a note in my mailbox. No stamp, just a folded sheet. "Jake, I lost sight of what community means. I'm sorry. Linda." I tucked it away, not because I needed it, but because it proved something even tyrants can break. Pinewood Grove wasn't just a place anymore.